There's a relationship status in Australia that carries the same legal weight as marriage when it comes to property and financial rights. And you might already be in one without even realizing it. Maybe you've been with someone for a year or two. You're spending most nights together. You've got belongings at each other's places and you're making plans together. You haven't signed anything, haven't had the marriage talk, so the legal side probably hasn't crossed your mind. Here's what you need to know. Australian family law doesn't care what you call your relationship. It looks at how you're living day to day. I'm John Boy from JB Solicitors. Over 17 years practicing family law, I've sat across from hundreds of people who were genuinely surprised to learn they were legally considered de facto partners. Some discovered that they had rights they didn't know existed. Others found out they had obligations they never anticipated. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly how Australian law determines whether you are in a de facto relationship, what that means for your assets and obligations, and the key things you need to know before it's too late. Let me start with a story that might sound familiar. I had a client, let's call him Mark, who was a successful accountant. He'd been seeing someone for about 18 months. They spent most nights together at his place. She had clothes and belongings there. They went to work functions together, and his friends knew her as his girlfriend. When things ended, she claimed they had been in a de facto relationship and saw a share of his investment property and superannuation. Mark was stunned. But here's what Mark didn't understand. The law doesn't care what you call your relationship. It actually looks at how you are living. The Family Law Act defines a de facto relationship as two people living together on a genuine domestic basis who aren't married and aren't related to each other. Sounds simple, right? But that phrase, genuine domestic basis, is where it gets complicated. The court looks at several factors, and you don't need all of them to be considered de facto. Factor 1, duration. How long have you been together for? There's no magic number, but longer relationships carry more weight. However, I've seen relationships of just a few months be considered de facto in the right circumstances. Factor 2, living arrangements. Do you share a home? This is often the most important factor, but it's not black and white. You might have separate places but spend most nights together. Or you might travel for work but consider one place your shared base. Factor 3, financial arrangements. Do you share expenses? Have joint accounts? Pay each other's bills? The more your finances are intertwined, the stronger the case for a de facto relationship. Factor 4, social recognition. How do you present yourselves to the world? Do friends and family see you as a couple? Do you attend events together? Social media posts, joint invitations? These all matter. Factor 5, commitment and future plans. The court looks at whether you are building a life together. Are you making joint decisions? Planning a future? In Mark's case, they booked a holiday together 6 months in advance and he'd given her a key to his apartment. The court saw this as evidence of commitment to a shared domestic life. Now you may have heard that you need to live together for 2 years to be considered de facto. That's not true. The 2-year rule actually applies to partnership visas when making an application to the Department of Foreign Affairs in relation to a visa. It doesn't relate to de facto relationship rules under the Family Law Act. But to make a property claim when you separate, you generally need to meet one of these criteria. You've been living together, or you have a child together, or one of you made substantial contributions, and it would be seriously unjust not to recognize the relationship, or your relationship is registered under state law. If you are found to be in a de facto relationship, the same property settlement rules that apply to married couples apply to you. That means everything you own, from property, superannuation, and investments to business interests get considered as part of the joint asset pool, even if it's in your name only. The court will look at financial contributions and non-financial contributions, like who did the housework and supported the other's career, for example. And if one person has lower earning capacity or will be caring for children, they might get a larger share of the assets to meet their future needs. So, if you're in a relationship that might be considered de facto, here's what you should consider. Step 1, get clear on your status. If you are unsure whether your relationship would be considered de facto, get legal advice. It's better to know where you stand than to be surprised later. In most Australian states and territories, you can even register your de facto relationship. It's like a formal recognition that you are in a committed relationship, even though you're not married. If you are unclear on your status, registration can be useful because it provides clear evidence that you considered yourselves to be in a de facto relationship. It can help with eligibility for property claims, and it gives you certain legal recognition for things like medical decisions. Step 2, consider a binding financial agreement. If you have significant assets or want to keep certain things separate, a binding financial agreement can provide protection. This is especially important if you are bringing substantial assets into the relationship. A binding financial agreement, or BFA, is essentially a contract between you and your partner that sets out your assets, liabilities, and financial resources. Think of it like a roadmap you both agree on before things get complicated. So, you and your partner decide together which assets stay separate, which get shared, and how everything gets divided if you separate. The benefit of a BFA is certainty. Instead of leaving it to a court to decide how your assets get divided, you've already agreed on the terms. This can save you significant time, legal costs, and emotional stress if the relationship doesn't work out. Step 3, keep good records. Document your financial contributions, living arrangements, and the nature of your relationship. This information is crucial if there's ever a dispute. Step 4, understand the limits. If your relationship ends, don't delay in getting legal advice about your rights and obligations. This is because once your de facto relationship ends, you have exactly 2 years to make a property claim. So, the bottom line is this: Australian law takes a practical approach to relationships. It doesn't matter what you call your relationship or whether you intend to create legal obligations. What matters is how you are actually living. If you're sharing a home, building a life together, and presenting yourselves as a couple, you might already be in a de facto relationship and all the legal rights and obligations that come with it. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. De facto relationships can provide important protections, especially for the partner who earns less or contributes to the home. But it's critical that you understand where you stand so you can make informed decisions about your future. Every relationship is different, and the law recognizes that what looks like a de facto relationship in one case might not be in another, even if the circumstances seem similar. That's why it's so important to get advice that's specific to your situation. If you're in a relationship and want to understand your legal position, or if you're dealing with the end of a relationship and need to know your rights, it's worth having a confidential conversation with someone who can assess your specific circumstances. We can help you understand whether your relationship would be considered de facto, what that means for you, your assets and obligations, and what steps you can take to protect yourself moving forward. There's a link in my description below if you'd like to book a consultation to discuss your situation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.